Hey listeners, welcome back to another episode of Infinite Podcast. It's your host here, ready to unpack something pretty intense today with my co-host Simon. Cyber warfare. Those words might sound like they're straight out of a spy movie, but it's very real. We'll delve into the dark web of digital battles, where countries sling code instead of bullets. Think of it as shadow boxing on an international scale, folks. Simon, this makes classic espionage look like child's play, doesn't it?
Oh, totally, Joe. It's like if James Bond quit the martini biz to open up a geek squad at Best Buy, except instead of fixing grandma's email, he's out there crashing national grids wearing nothing but a bathrobe and slippers.
That's one way to picture it, Simon. Cyber warfare is more than just crashing systems. It's about stealing secrets, destabilizing economies, even influencing elections, and doing it all under the radar. Countries are pouring resources into training cyber soldiers. Just think of the Stuxnet virus that wreaked havoc on Iran's nuclear program, a real-life example of cyber tactics changing the game. It's not sci-fi, it's today's battlefield.
Well, Joe, what gets me is how we slap the warfare label on pretty much anything. Like, sure, Stuxnet was a big deal, but not every hack with fancy code is an act of war, right? Some are just plain old spying or vandalism wearing a cyber Halloween costume. And let's be real, economics? Influence? That game's older than my grandma's back tattoo. Cyber just slapped on Wi-Fi and called it innovation.
Exactly, Simon. Real cyber warfare goes beyond mere misdemeanor to acts that genuinely threaten national security or strategic interests. Cyber espionage, like when Chinese hackers allegedly hit the Office of Personnel Management in 2015, snatching up personnel records, is spy work upgraded. And the goal's not always to destroy. Sometimes it's about causing confusion, like Russia's reputed involvement in the US elections. Cybercrime? That's for profit. But state-sponsored attacks? Pure strategy, a mix of chess and shadow puppetry played across global networks, disrupting infrastructure without ever firing a shot. It blurs lines between war and peace.
Joe, you hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to hammer it in a bit more. These state-sponsored cyber attacks can be super sneaky, right? We're talking malware, planting false flags, making it look like one country's doing the dirty when, surprise, it's someone else. It's digital dress-up. And then there's the disruption to power plants, water treatment facilities. It gets to that scary level where lives are at stake without a bomb in sight. The main goal here? Chaos, my man. Chaos.
You're not wrong about the chaos, but let's not over-dramatize. Chaos is a side effect, not the main course. These attackers aren't digital anarchists. They've got chess grandmaster vibes. They think 10 moves ahead. The goal? It's more control than pure chaos. Disruption serves a purpose, like weakening public trust in institutions or sowing discord amongst political factions. And the false flag operations, that's misdirection, making sure you don't see the real play until it's too late. In this game, it's less about causing random havoc and more about calculated strikes for long-term gains.
So if we're seeing this as a high-stakes chess match, Joe, where do you think the big power play is? Like, what's the king move nations are building up to with these cheeky little pawn jabs in the cyber world?
The king move. Well, Simon, if we're sticking with the chess analogy, the endgame of these power plays seems to be about control over information, infrastructure, and even public opinion. But what do you think it's ultimately leading to? Are all these cyber jabs setting us up for a checkmate scenario where one major strike could bring a nation to its knees? Or is it more about holding power in a perpetual stalemate where no one dares make a move? What's your take on that, Simon?
Control, Joe. That's the jackpot. Checkmate might be too clean for cyber warfare. It's less a finale and more about keeping your enemy always one reboot from disaster. It's power through uncertainty. But more than that, I think nations use cyber tactics as leverage. Say you've got dirt on another country's politicians or their energy grid in your back pocket. Isn't that the ultimate bargaining chip? The end game isn't total destruction. It's insurance, a way to keep everyone at the table or handcuffed to it.
Insurance is one thing, but it's a dangerous game. If every nation has dirt or a finger on the proverbial off switch for critical systems, it's like playing with fire in an oil refinery. I'd argue the endgame could change if someone decides to escalate beyond leverage and into actual damage. And let's not forget, offense is only half the equation. Defense matters too. What good is holding dirt if your own house is made of glass? So Simon, what do you think about investing more in cyber defenses rather than just stockpiling offensive capabilities? Could this be a wake-up call for nations to beef up security and maybe dial down the digital espionage tango?
Joe, defense investment sounds like a no-brainer, but here's the rub. It's not as simple as fortifying walls. Cybersecurity is this insane game of whack-a-mole. Plug one hole and 10 new ones pop up. Offensive capabilities don't just serve as deterrents, but also keep nations in the know about emerging threats. Like, who's going to fear you if all you do is play goalie? Plus, fact is, for every dollar spent on defense, someone else is dropping two to crack it open. We need our own hackers to understand and counteract what we're up against. It's that old saying, to catch a thief, or in this case, to catch a hacker, right?
Holding that thought, Simon, playing offense to bolster defense is a slippery slope. It often escalates tensions and leads to an arms race that nobody wins. Factually, countries with formidable cyber defenses are less attractive targets. Let's take Israel, for example. They've invested heavily in cybersecurity, creating a robust ecosystem around it, and it makes adversaries think twice before engaging. Moreover, emphasizing defense can also lead to establishing international norms and agreements on cyber warfare, much like nuclear non-proliferation treaties. If all we do is build bigger digital weapons, we're setting ourselves up for a fall. Think about it. Offensive tactics get leaked, turned around, and used against us, the WannaCry ransomware incident being a prime example. Defensive strength lies not just in deterring attacks, but in resilience and recovery, keeping society running smoothly despite attempts to destabilize it.
So Joe, about establishing international norms and agreements in the cyber realm, do you see that actually happening anytime soon? Nations seem to play it so close to the chest, it's like asking rival magicians to share their secrets, isn't it?
Absolutely, Simon. The shadowy nature of cyber warfare, combined with the high stakes, makes transparency and agreement among nations quite the pipe dream. However, I do see a sliver of hope. Just like we've seen with international laws on traditional warfare, eventually there might be common ground in cyberspace, as the consequences of not doing so could be catastrophic. It just takes one major incident to spark serious dialogue. Think an event that cripples global infrastructure or rattles the world economy. When countries grasp that stability in cyberspace is as crucial as on land, sea, or air, then maybe they'll come around to setting some ground rules. It's a slow burn towards collaboration and adopting a defensive mindset over an offensive one, prioritizing public safety and trust over digital dominance.
Whoa, ground rules for cyber warfare. That's wild, Joe. Setting up international laws in a world where sneaking around is the name of the game. And get this, what if we threw in a cyber Red Cross too? Like a geek squad for internet peacekeeping. Cyber chaos strikes and bam, they swoop in with their digital first aid kits. Imagine that.
Haha, a cyber Red Cross isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. There's definitely a call for neutral digital medics in times of crisis. However, until that happens, each leap to understand the murky waters of cyber warfare, from offensive operations to defensive maneuvers, is crucial. Speaking of which, maybe next time, Simon, we should crack open the basics and shed light on how to keep your own backyard safe in this digital age. What do you say?
Absolutely, Joe. Keeping our own digital house safe is a solid chat. That actually reminds me of when things go real bad in the digital hood, like cities getting hit with blackouts and services going kaput thanks to hackers. Remember that mess with the power grid? Total chaos.
For sure, those grid attacks were a wake-up call. But did they ever pinpoint who was behind it all? Attribution seems like a major headache in these situations.
You're right about that attribution migraine, Joe. Sometimes it's like trying to catch a ghost. Take the 2015 Ukraine power grid hack, for example. Left folks chilling in the dark midwinter. The hackers took out about a third of the power stations and even left some cheeky false leads to throw investigators off the scent. And then there's the not-so-distant cousin, the Atlanta ransomware attack in 2018. City services knocked offline for days. Court dates missed, bill payments stalled. They asked for Bitcoin, but the city didn't cough up the cash. Instead, they spent millions recovering. The plot thickens, because proving who did what in cyberspace isn't easy peasy. Without physical evidence or an IP address gift-wrapped, we're often playing detective with invisible perps. It's the ultimate whodunit, where sometimes you just don't find out who done it.
Yeah, and I'll push back on the notion that we're totally blind. Cyber forensics is a thing, after all. While it's tough to get a smoking gun, there are methods and digital breadcrumbs. Analyzing code, tactics, or even linguistic patterns within malware can sometimes point to specific groups or countries. Plus, let me throw in this curveball. Sometimes blackouts or breaches might not even be malicious. What if it's aging infrastructure, huh? Not everything that glitters is a cyber attack. Could it be we're too quick to yell hacker when a transformer blows because of neglect? Sure, in high-profile cases like Ukraine, evidence pointed to Russian involvement, making a subtle statement. But closer to home, like Atlanta's ransomware nightmare, there's this tendency to shrug off internal weaknesses. We ought to look inward at our cyber health, our cities skimping on security measures, lacking proper backups or disaster recovery plans. Easy to blame specters lurking online. Harder to admit, maybe we left the door wide open.
Joe, you hit the nail on the head. Cyber forensics does give us glimmers of hope, but then again, there's always that covertness ribbon tied to hacking. And you're so right, not every hiccup in the grid is a cyber ghost story. Some of our tech is just plain old and tired. It's like accusing the neighbor kid of stealing your newspaper when it was really just the wind. But for real, cases where we do sniff out the cyber scent, it's pretty chilling. No one forgets the Stuxnet worm eating into nuclear centrifuges, or closer to home, Baltimore getting hammered by ransomware, costing them big time both in cash and credibility. Cities sure need a wake-up call. Can't keep skirting around top-notch security measures. It's like leaving your car unlocked and being shocked it got nicked. In this day and age, invest in cyber fortification or pay the piper when things go south. Simple as that.
Speaking of, what if cities start treating their cyber infrastructure like celebrities treat their homes? High walls, cameras everywhere, a bodyguard at every port and login. Make hackers work so hard to get in that they just decide it's not worth the effort. But again, when is enough actually enough without going full Fort Knox?
So Joe, if we soup up our digital defenses like celebrities with their mansion security, where do we draw the line to avoid turning our cities into virtual fortresses? How do we strike that balance between Fort Knox and sitting ducks?
Striking that balance is like trying to season your food perfectly. Too much salt and it's ruined. Too little and it's bland. For our city's cyber defenses, the real problem lies in the complacency of "it won't happen to us" attitudes. Layers of security are good, but we must be smart about it. Let's get real here. No matter how massive the walls or deep the moat, there's always a vulnerability. Cybersecurity isn't just about building barriers. It's about constant vigilance and having a pulsing beat on what's happening inside and outside those walls. We've got to grow a culture of cybersecurity where every employee, from the intern to the mayor, understands the stakes and their role in keeping the city safe. It's more than tech. It's education, actionable protocols, regular drills. You don't need an impenetrable fortress if you can swiftly detect and isolate a threat, almost ninja style. Forget Fort Knox. Think more agile cyber SWAT teams ready at any given moment. But come on, Simon. Let me throw this back to you. Do you really think most cities have the budget or political will to turn that idea into reality? Or are they doomed to learn the hard way?
Joe, it boils down to this. Most cities just don't have the cash or the push behind them to shape up their cyber act until disaster hits. Look at Atlanta. They only boosted their cybersecurity budget after getting smacked with that ransomware. Reactive, not proactive. And the hard numbers? A study by the University of Maryland says hackers attack every 39 seconds. In 2019, over 70 state and local governments were hit by ransomware in the US alone. It's why the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reports sky-high losses from these events. Our infrastructure lags big time, man. On a brighter note, there's funding like Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant eager for takers, but will the cities bite? Another fact, Cybersecurity Ventures predicted that global spending on cybersecurity would hit $1 trillion cumulatively from 2017 to 2021. Despite these eye-watering costs, the investment is crucial to avoid the even steeper price tag of recovery efforts post-attack. So, education, drills, modern tools, none of that's cheap, and it all hinges on our leaders choosing long-term safety over short-term savings. It's less ninja SWAT teams, more crossing fingers and hoping for the best, unless we get our priorities straight.
Guess it's human nature, Simon, to wait for the storm before fixing the roof. Here's a thought. What if there was a way to make cyber resilience not just necessary, but financially lucrative? Imagine cities earning cyber credits for strong security that they could trade or cash in. Could flip the script on how we invest in our digital defenses.
Now there's a curveball, Joe. Cyber credits, like air miles for your firewall, rack 'em up by staying secure. It's like turning the cyber defense game into one of those arcade machines where you hit moles on the head. Keep your city safe, score points, and trade them in for cool prizes. How about Cyber Monday deals all year round for the safest cities, the cyberspace equivalent of a gold star sticker chart? Man, can we patent that idea or what?
Absolutely, it's one visionary idea to incentivize cybersecurity, turning a dreary but necessary task into something rewarding. Maybe we're onto something that could revolutionize how city leaders approach their cyber defenses. But let me leave you with this. How would cities prove they're secure enough to earn these credits? There's a topic to drill deeper into next time. Cyber audits, anyone?
Right, Joe. Cyber audits would be key in that hypothetical credit system. It's a bit like health inspections, but for your firewalls and passwords instead of your fridge and grill. But speaking about cybersecurity defenses, there's this lighter side where blunders can become the stuff of legend. Kind of like movie plots gone awry. Take that scene from Office Space, where they botch up their financial rounding down scheme. It's not far off from some real-world digital whoopsies. Or those classic tales of forgotten passwords locking out millions. You just gotta laugh. Sometimes life imitates art a little too closely when it comes to cyber flubs.
Oh man, Office Space nailed it with that scheme. It's just like those real-life stories where one coding error ends up draining accounts, or some intern clicks the wrong thing and shuts down a whole system. And how about the guy who threw out a hard drive with thousands of Bitcoin on it? Like a treasure hunt for the digital age. Only the X marks a landfill the size of a small country. Goes to show, even in this high-stakes world, sometimes you just have to step back and laugh at the insanity of human error.
Joe, get this. Had a buddy once, good with tech. He set up a fancy new smart home system, right? Voice-activated everything. One day, his cat walks across the tablet and poof, all the lights out, AC cranked to Arctic levels, sprinklers on full blast indoors. He's wading through his living room like it's a kiddie pool, trying to shout commands over the sound of his own shivering. The moral? Maybe we're only as strong as our weakest link, even if that link is a curious cat and a touchscreen left unattended. It's not quite a landfill-sized Bitcoin hunt, but it certainly shows how the human or feline element can turn high-tech into high comedy.
Cat causing digital chaos, now that's a tale. No hacker stands a chance if pets join the fray. Note to self, never underestimate a feline near tech. That's smart home security's unexpected Achilles heel right there.
Absolutely, Joe. The cat's out of the bag now, literally. Pet-proofing might just be the next big trend in cybersecurity. Who knew Fluffy held the keys to the kingdom?
You joke, but there's some truth to animals stirring up the digital world. Let's unpack that a bit. Poorly designed interfaces can lead to unintentional mayhem, whether it's paws or misplaced elbows on touchscreens. The IoT, Internet of Things realm has its own set of quirky vulnerabilities. For instance, we heard about those smart thermostats hackers could exploit to crank up the heat, or smart fridges used in DDoS attacks because their security was, well, frosty at best. It's ironic. The more connected we get, the more potential for these firewall fables. And with an estimated 75 billion IoT devices by 2025, according to Statista, these stories might just become way more common. So while we chuckle now, securing everything from our laptops to our light bulbs is no laughing matter. Pet-proofing doesn't sound too far-fetched now, does it?
Right on, Joe. This whole Internet of Things situation is like giving a kid control over all the candy in the world. Something's going to go haywire. Take those baby monitors that got hacked because the default password was still set. That's not the kind of lullaby any parent wants. And remember that casino that got hacked through an aquarium thermometer? Fish literally gambling away security. It's these types of slip-ups that sound too bizarre to believe. We're weaving this tapestry of tech into every corner of our lives, but leaving loose threads everywhere for hackers or cats to tug on. These firewall fables aren't just cautionary tales with a laugh. They're real reminders that convenience comes paired with vulnerability. If we don't want our homes turning into sitcom sets, it's time to tighten up and treat even the smallest gadget like a digital fort's gatekeeper.
Definitely, Simon. These stories pack both humor and a hefty lesson. As our homes swell with smart devices, who knows what comedic cautionary tales we'll be telling next. There are bound to be more blunders in the pipeline, technological faux pas that will be tomorrow's teachable moments. For now, let's keep our eyes peeled and maybe add Cybersecurity 101 to pet training programs. Wonder what other wild stories are out there waiting to be discovered.
You know, Joe, from pet-induced pandemonium to the big leagues, imagine a full-blown cyber apocalypse. That's one sequel no one wants to see, every smart device going bonkers at once. But what happens after? Can we bounce back from that kind of digital doomsday, or should we start brushing up on our smoke signal skills?
Whoa, hold up. The thought alone is chilling. It's not just about the lights going out. It's banks, hospitals, transport, you name it, collapsing all at once. Can we recover? Sure, humans are resilient. We've had world wars, natural disasters, economic crashes, but a cyber apocalypse is uncharted territory. We might rally after the initial shock, but the real test lies in rebuilding trust in technology. Once bitten, twice shy, right? An eye for an eye approach in cyber retaliation could start a vicious cycle of strikes and counterstrikes with no clear end. That's assuming international agreements can still hold up after such an event. Could go either way, unite us or divide us even further. There's some food for thought.
Yeah, Joe. The idea that we'd all need to rebuild that trust in tech, it gets you right in the gut, doesn't it? After so much progress, it feels like a slap in the face to imagine starting over because of some code gone rogue. It's not just inconvenience, it's our whole way of life up in smoke. When you put it that way, this balance between holding on to hope and bracing for the fallout, it's heavy, man. Makes me genuinely uneasy. How would we look each other in the eye, knowing everything we've built could vanish with a keystroke? The thought of those international divides possibly deepening, it's got a real end-of-days vibe to it. We'd be clinging to our humanity during a time when the invisible web that connects us gets snipped. It's one of those topics that's far from with laugh track, more something that makes you sit up at night, you know?
Absolutely, the stakes are astronomical. But hey, in a cyber apocalypse, maybe we'd get a break from all those pesky social media updates. No more photos of brunches or vacations to scroll through. Plus, I bet the post-cyber collapse would be the golden age for board games and face-to-face conversations. Might not be all bad, right?
Well, Joe, silver linings, right? But let's add some color to that. Imagine a cyber meltdown. Suddenly, the global internet infrastructure goes kaput. No online banking means economies could stall. Remember the 2008 crash? Now multiply that. Essential services like water, power, they've all gone digital. Without them, it's like rewinding centuries. But then there's human adaptability. Historically, after collapses, we've rebuilt. Just look at post-war eras. However, this time dependence on tech means we'd be starting from scratch in many ways. Cyber retaliation? Ethically dubious and logistically messy. The Talon Manual discusses legal frameworks on cyber warfare, but applying these in chaos is another story. The realist in me says we'd scramble, improvise, innovate, then gradually restore society. But with the stakes multiplied by modern reliance on cyberspace, we're looking at recovery times unlike anything we've seen before. So grab a Monopoly board, it might come in handy.
Definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we had to rebuild like that, with tech basically getting a hard reset, do you think society would shift its values? Maybe put less emphasis on digital prowess and more on self-reliance or community resilience?
Funny you should mention that, Joe. Reminds me of the blackout my neighborhood had years back. No power for days. We were cut off from the digital tap. No lights, no internet, nada. People popped out like gophers, actually talking to neighbors they barely knew existed before. We barbecued all our thawing food together, shared resources, told stories, the kind usually DM'd. It was this impromptu block party sparked by inconvenience. Despite the mess, everyone was helping each other out, truly akin to community resilience. It was eye-opening. In that analog void, individual strength shone, education about basics skyrocketed, and life was refreshingly tangible. Makes you think, if tech took a nosedive globally, maybe that sense of togetherness could rekindle, could shift our values more than we know.
Hey, Real Rafi, thanks for tuning in. Well, to answer your question, no man, this isn't AI, just a couple of mates having a chat. Now let's get back into it. We were on the brink of something thought-provoking.
You're telling me, after a cyber apocalypse, we're back to playing real-life Minecraft? Building shelters out of sofa cushions, hunting for the last can of beans like it's some kind of apocalypse Easter egg hunt. Might even get my neighbors to talk to me again, once they need my stash of AA batteries.
Minecraft with sofa cushions, ha. If it ever comes down to that, our resourcefulness will kick in for sure. Plus, those AA batteries, you'll be the neighborhood hero, Simon. But let's hope our actual buildings are sturdier than what we can craft out of living room furniture. Let's leave everyone pondering, what skills or knowledge should we start picking up just in case our digital safety net disappears?
Thinking about that digital safety net, Joe, dovetails neatly into our next brain nibble. So we're beefing up homemaking skills for doomsday scenarios, but what about diplomatic ones? It's not just survivalist stuff. It's about maintaining peace, virtual or otherwise. Enter this brave new world of digital diplomacy where pixels might carry more power than traditional peacemakers. Virtual ambassadors, they're the cool new kids in international relations. They mediate conflicts through screens, bridging physical divides with internet lines. Forget jet-setting envoys, we've got Wi-Fi wielding peace brokers.
Absolutely, Simon. Swapping out briefcases for broadband could revolutionize peacemaking. Embassies on every street? Unlikely. But these digital diplomats are becoming keystones in maintaining harmony between nations from behind a computer screen. It's about negotiation and conflict resolution skills, getting an upgrade with a side of cybersecurity know-how. Sure beats trying to find parking at the United Nations. But seriously, it's pivotal how virtual ambassadors navigate this tangled web of global issues without ever leaving their desks.
All right, Joe, I'm going to hit pause here. This whole pixels for peace concept? Sure, it's neat. Digital diplomats might be the new tech-savvy heroes of our time, but let's not toss out old-school tact and charm just yet. These virtual ambassadors have to wrangle encrypted chats instead of handshakes. Where's the human touch in that? And tackling global crises from a swivel chair with dual monitors? Here's hoping their Wi-Fi never goes down mid-negotiation. Real talk, diplomacy's always been more art than science. Will a green screen backdrop and a ring light hold up against tensions that have broiled over centuries? It's like trying to DJ a peace treaty. Sure, you can spin the tracks, but can you make them dance?
I get it. Tech has its perks, but you're spot on. Diplomacy needs that human touch. Without face-to-face interactions, how will these virtual ambassadors read the room? Nonverbal cues, a furrowed brow, or a timely nod, those subtleties can make or break deals. And think about crisis zones where internet access is shaky at best. Relying too much on digital could mean leaving those folks in the lurch. Plus, navigating different cultures digitally adds layers of complexity to an already intricate dance. Maybe it's like mixing old vinyl with new beats. Balance is everything. Blend the personal approach with digital tools to truly connect and resolve conflicts.
Imagine getting your peace treaty Zoom bombed. There you are, hashing out world-changing policies, and boom, some joker's cat video takes center stage. Sorry, esteemed leaders, Mr. Whiskers demands attention. Digital diplomacy's got its perks, but let's keep those virtual backgrounds professional, huh? No tropical beaches during nuclear disarmament talks, deal?
Haha, cat video diplomacy. That's gold, Simon. But seriously, with cybersecurity being a real concern, do you think these digital diplomats are going to need their own team of cyber bodyguards just to keep the hackers and Zoom bombers at bay during delicate negotiations?
Indeed, Joe. I can see it now. Secret Service Cyber Squad, keyboards instead of pistols, sunglasses still non-negotiable. But let's not forget these online emissaries are sitting ducks for any teenage hacker with a grudge and too much time on their hands. It's all fun and games till someone leaks the nuclear codes in a tweet. We're talking about a whole new kind of arms race here. Firewalls and antivirus programs as the first line of defense in international diplomacy. And there's no martial art for fighting off malware, at least not yet.
Haha, yeah man, cyber secret service agents. Imagine that. Listen, the internet is like the Wild West, and these virtual ambassadors are like the sheriffs trying to keep the peace. They better be ready to fend off some digital outlaws, because if a teenager in their basement can crack high-security firewalls, we're all in trouble. Diplomacy in the age of the internet, you gotta roll with the punches and maybe throw a few cyber uppercuts while you're at it.
Lay a little story on you, Joe. Back in the dial-up days, I had this friend, let's call her Cyber Sally. Sally was queen of the chat rooms, could diffuse any online scuffle with just a ping and well-placed emoticon. This one time, two keyboard warriors were going at it over some video game lore, and it was getting ugly, like caps lock and personal insults ugly. Sally jumps in, no fear, all charm. By the end of it, not only did she broker an epic truce between these pixelated combatants, she also got them to team up for a virtual charity drive. Sure, it ain't world peace, but watching her coolly navigate that digital chaos taught me the value of having a level head and clear communication, even if your boots are planted firmly under a computer desk. Cyber outlaws don't stand a chance against those skills.
Hey there, fresh listeners. You've just dove into a lively debate about the world of digital diplomacy. Imagine ambassadors resolving global conflicts from their computer desks. This is the age of pixels for peace. We've been unpacking what it means to be a virtual ambassador and musing over whether Wi-Fi could hold the key to world harmony. From Cyber Sally's chat room peace deals to the nitty-gritty of online security and high-stakes negotiations, we're talking about an internet-fueled twist on traditional peace talks. Stick around as we decode how technology could make or break the future of international relations.
Pixels for peace. I'm picturing ambassadors with avatars and Twitter diplomacy, hashtags over handshakes. But let's keep it 100, Joe. When's the last time a tweet solved anything serious? You can slap an emoji on peace talks, but that won't stop real tanks rolling across borders. These digital delegates need more than a strong Wi-Fi signal. They'll need the wisdom of the ages too. The art of negotiation can't be reduced to clever memes or viral videos, despite how much we love them. We live in an era where a politician's typo could trend quicker than the actual policy. Sure, technology changes the game, but peace requires more than just hitting send on an email. It's about establishing trust, something that no amount of pixels can replicate.
You're not wrong, Simon. A tweet, no matter how viral, lacks the gravity to iron out deep-seated conflicts. But let's not underestimate the power shift here. Digital diplomacy isn't just tweets. It's about opening up new dialogue channels that never existed. It's a tool, not the whole toolbox. Sure, establishing trust is harder behind screens, but virtual ambassadors can leverage today's interconnectivity to gather support across nations in seconds, not months. They're not replacing traditional methods, they're enhancing them. Will a gift stop a tank? Nope. But if it gets the right eyes on an issue, well, that's step one. The challenge now, using these tools wisely and responsibly.
Totally, Joe. Digital diplomacy is a double-edged sword. It carves out new communication paths, but could slice through the nuances of face-to-face interactions. The question isn't if these virtual ambassadors can tweet or email their way to peace. It's how they'll harness this digital reach and marry it with the timeless human elements of diplomacy. As we ponder that, I'm curious. Will the future unveil a world where broadband battles replace battlefields? Could keystrokes be the new peace talks? Time and technology will tell.
As we dissect this new age of hashtags over handshakes, it's a hop, skip, and a URL to our next digital dilemma. These cyber realms aren't just platforms for peace. They can also be the spark that ignites very real flare-ups between nations. We've now stepped onto the virtual battlefield where cyber tensions escalate with the click of a mouse. Simon, how about we unpack some instances where online spats have nearly tipped us into physical confrontations? The internet. Is it our greatest tool for unity or the front line of the next global conflict?
Absolutely, Joe. Remember the whole fiasco with those hacked emails? Bam! Overnight, we were all on the edge of our seats, watching political giants shadowbox in cyberspace. Makes you wonder if international laws got enough teeth to tackle these cyber scuffles. Are bits and bytes governed by the same laws as bullets and bombs? Fact is, countries are still playing catch-up. And here's where it gets real tricky. The internet's a global town square and a digital minefield. Any post or hack can set off sparks. Sure, online tiffs sometimes stay petty, but when they hint at darker dealings, like leaks, espionage, or election interference, we're teetering dangerously close to real-world showdowns. Cyber scrapes can escalate faster than you can say firewall breach. Question is, do we have the virtual rulebook ready for what's brewing in those undersea cables?
Well, Simon, one could argue that those hacked emails and the like don't necessarily push us closer to physical conflicts. Instead, they open up conversations about transparency and accountability. We've got international frameworks like the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, yet some of these historical cyber squabbles didn't escalate to actual armed conflict precisely because of resilient diplomacy. While it's true countries are scrambling to keep pace with the digital revolution, the internet itself serves as a platform for negotiation and collective action against cyber threats. We've seen big players come together to condemn cyber espionage, pushing for more robust cooperation. Plus, there's a bigger emphasis now on cyber defense strategies over straightforward retaliation. The rules may need an update, but the old-school principles of mutual respect still apply in this new digital domain.
Joe, that's kind of like saying sharks are only dangerous when you're swimming with a stake tied to your leg. Sure, these conventions and treaties are swimming lanes in the ocean, but there's always a chance our digital surfboard will snap under the weight of rogue cyber waves. It's this fine balance between control and chaos. Does it create open dialogues, or just paint crosshairs on server farms? The internet is both the world's megaphone and its whispering corridor. Let's not forget, every megaphone can get hijacked, and every corridor has its eavesdroppers.
Let's shake it up then. The digital sphere, it's the Wild West and ancient Athens all in one. A nerve center where every tap of a keyboard can kickstart a butterfly effect, fanning out to touch global superpowers and rogue players alike. Server farm sounds peaceful until you realize it could be ground zero for the next Cold War, silently fought through cables and code. The stakes, high. The game board, borderless.
Oh, the irony, Joe. A server farm, where data is peacefully harvested, could be where digital doomsday seeds are sown. This cyber chess game isn't played with black and white squares, but through invisible ones and zeros that can ambush an economy or unseat a government with no warning shot fired. It's all cloak and dagger until someone trips the cyber alarm, sparking heated debates in UN corridors. But hey, we're talking about a domain without frontiers. It doesn't fit neatly into our old world ideas of war and peace. The rules? They're written in pencil on a protocol page that's buffering eternally. It's not just a game of defense. It's cyber hide and seek with global hot potatoes that nobody wants to handle.
Amplifying what I just laid down, Simon, here's the deal. These virtual scuffles can cause actual economic tremors. Take, for instance, widespread ransomware attacks. They paralyze cities, hospitals, even entire countries within minutes. The costs? Astronomical. Now pair that with accusations between states of who's behind the keyboard. Suddenly you've got international blame games and a trust vacuum sucking the air out of diplomatic relations. What's more, geopolitical tussles often move from the boardroom to the chat room, where they mutate into information wars that are far less constrained by traditional rules of engagement. It's no longer spy versus spy. It's server versus server, 24/7, and the combatants are masked by layers of digital anonymity.
Oh, that takes me back to this one time during college. So there I was, in my dorm, involved in an intense negotiation, which is a fancy way of saying an online gaming match with stakes being the last slice of pizza with those coveted pepperoni toppings. The tension? You could cut it with a spork. Then, bam, my screen freezes. Turns out, some joker thought it'd be hilarious to launch a mini DDoS attack on our network as a prank. Laughs all around, right? Except it escalated quick. One by one, everyone's connection drops. Research papers, thesis projects. We're talking semesters of work disappearing into the digital void. It wasn't international crisis level, but it showed me exactly how a simple cyber mischief can snowball into full-on chaos. With the anonymity of the web combined with a dash of technical know-how, even a joke can trigger serious consequences. It's funny only until someone loses their term paper, or in the bigger picture, critical infrastructure gets hit. Digital antics have real-world ripples, and sometimes they crash way harder than you'd expect.
The beauty of the internet, right? Everyone's a keystroke away from becoming an accidental cybervillain or hero. It's high time for a robust digital Geneva Convention. We're navigating murky waters that just keep getting murkier. What's playful can quickly turn powerful, and what starts as a prank could end up with policymakers scrambling to catch up.
Absolutely, Joe. The digital realm is our Pandora's box, packed with endless possibilities and unpredictable mayhem. Stakes this high call for more than a slapdash patchwork of responses. We need global consensus on how to deal with these invisible but all too real skirmishes. And as we inch closer to needing that cyber equivalent of the Geneva Convention, we've got to ask ourselves, what happens next time? When joking taps turn into crisis taps, are we ready? Or are we just making it up as we go along, one frantic Control-Alt-Delete at a time? Let's chew on that, listeners, because where we go from here is anyone's guess.
Speaking of Control-Alt-Deleting our way out of a crisis, it's that perfect segue to consider how sometimes what we need in the thick of digital drama is a laugh. Imagine cyber negotiations with an emoji peace treaty. You offend my digital territory? Send over a GIF of a kitten waving a white flag. De-escalation by cuteness. Who could resist? Let's flip the script and think about how humor could actually be a secret weapon in those high-stakes virtual standoffs. Trading those cyber punches for punchlines might just be the unexpected disarmament tactic we never knew we needed.
You know, that reminds me of this wild online gaming tournament I was in. We're all pumped up, high stakes, bragging rights, and a ridiculous trophy for the win. Now, we're mid-battle, tensions are peaking, when suddenly our top player drops out. Internet issues. The other team could have steamrolled us, but instead, they start sending voice chats filled with over-the-top mock opera singing, serenading our fallen comrade. Every gamer on both sides is howling with laughter. What does my team do? We hit back with the most dramatic readings of famous movie lines. The whole match turns into a comedy fest. In the end, the rival team agrees to a redo once our mate's back online. No scores settled, but spirits absolutely lifted. And you know what? Both teams walked away with more respect for each other than if we duked it out to the bitter end. Just goes to show, a bit of humor can turn foes into friends, even when victory's on the line. Who said cyberspace has to be serious business all the time?
That's a heartwarming tale, Simon. But let's face it, quips and LOLs won't always cut it. Imagine this scenario. Global leaders in a Zoom call trying to defuse an escalating cyber conflict through a meme battle. It's a ridiculous image, but humor does have its place at the negotiating table. just maybe not front and center. Take two countries on the edge of a digital standoff, keyboards locked and loaded. Could cracking a well-timed joke via diplomatic channels, maybe through secure DMs, serve as an unexpected olive branch? Done wrong, it could backfire spectacularly. But done right, it could be the pressure valve that eases tensions. I mean, avoiding World War III because someone nailed a punchline? That'll make for one heck of a story. Tiptoeing on that fine line between jest and jab, that's the art of humor in negotiations. Always worth a shot, sure, but you've got to pick your moment. Timing isn't just everything. It might just be the only thing.
Well, Joe, steering clear of cyber annihilation because someone crafted the perfect meme? That's a line not even Hollywood's boldest writers would tread. But hey, if cat videos can unite the internet, perhaps they're the true diplomats we never knew we needed. Who knows? The next peace treaty might just come with a side of viral video laughs.
Perhaps the future of international relations is a cat sitting at the UN, pressing keys to launch peace initiatives, not rockets. Now that's a world I could get behind, Simon.
I'm all in, Joe. If keyboards are the new battlefields, let's recruit those keyboard-slamming cats as our four-legged peacekeeping forces. I mean, can you picture it? A bunch of world leaders watching a live stream of Mr. Whiskers accidentally hammering out a cyber treaty. No one stays mad at errant paw strokes dissolving digital disputes. It's absurd, but that's the charm. Turns out, the secret to global harmony was hiding under our beds and knocking stuff off our shelves all along.
Imagine that. A cat video might get chuckles across the aisle, but let's not kid ourselves. Hitting the pause button on global cyber tensions needs more than furry diplomats and accidental key smashes. Sure, levity can be leverage, but we'd still need some serious human strategy behind those whiskers. We laugh at the idea of memes as peace offerings, but it's actually about finding common ground, even if it's just shared humor, and building from there. Hey, maybe the next summit needs a comedy roast session before diving into code and cables. Laughter could be the greatest Trojan horse, sneaking in goodwill right through the firewalls of international discord.
No doubt, Joe. Slipping in a good joke might just be the masterstroke that gets two sides talking again, because everyone speaks funny. So who knows? Maybe there's room at the negotiation table for both diplomats and stand-up comics. A little humor could pave the way to serious talks, bridging divides one shared laugh at a time. What else do you think could break the ice in an tense situation?
Funny thing about shared laughs, they're just one way tech might actually be bridging gaps. As we dive deeper into the digital age, it's fascinating to consider how technology, once a divider, is now offering us tools for unity. From bringing internet access to remote villages to global open-source projects that connect developers from every corner of the planet, tech has this unique power to cross physical and ideological borders. This natural evolution sparks an interesting thought. Can tech push us further towards harmony? By declaring internet access a human right, we set the stage for inclusive dialogues, worldwide education, and collective problem-solving. This isn't just Wi-Fi everywhere. It's about laying down the infrastructure for peace and understanding on a global scale. It's hacking the system, but in the best possible way.
So, Joe, are we saying that if every person on Earth had internet access, like a digital all-you-can-eat buffet of information, it could potentially knock down those walls that keep us apart? Do you think we're up for managing the mammoth task of keeping that vast digital space a platform for peace, rather than more online battlegrounds?
I'd say that's wishful thinking, Simon. Sure, the digital utopia sounds nice, but with access comes conflict, differing viewpoints, and of course, misinformation. It's naive to think that just by giving everyone a seat at the table, they're going to get along. Plus, who's managing this space? Corporations? Governments? The issues we face offline will manifest online, maybe even amplified. The real deal is fostering digital literacy, so people can discern facts from fiction, engage critically, and debate constructively. We've got to invest in not just access but education, to craft those tools that encourage dialogue over division. That's our shot at unity. Global cyber kumbaya? A long way off, my friend.
Whoa, hold up. Just stumbled onto an epic idea here. Imagine if everyone had the internet. Like everywhere you go, even hidden nooks and crannies of the world, bam, online. But then, here comes the million-dollar question. Could that actually stitch our patchwork planet together? Feels like we're onto something massive, Joe. We hand out Wi-Fi like candy, and what? Are we all suddenly singing Kumbaya while drafting treaties on Twitch? All right, getting a bit carried away, I know. But think about it. The whole globe connected with the click of a button. That's powerful stuff. Sure, there's going to be squabbles and trolls. It ain't a digital paradise, but sharing ideas across borders, that's how we start hacking our way to some sort of harmony, right? Just gotta make sure everyone can not only get on board, but also really ride the waves once they're in.
Hey, new listeners tuning in, you're right on time. We've been diving deep into whether tech can truly unite us all. Picture every corner of the world with internet access, like Wi-Fi falling from the sky, everywhere, for everyone. Sounds cool, right? But it's not all high fives and friend requests. Sure, it's a massive step towards exchange and understanding, but we're keeping it real. It also means tackling misinformation and teaching people to navigate the digital waves. So, are we marching towards global harmony with our smartphones held high? Maybe. Technology's got the power to connect us, sure, but uniting us? That's going to take more than just a strong signal. It's about using those connections wisely to build bridges, not just faster broadband. And that, dear friends, is what's up for debate today.
You got it. Everyone's online. Now imagine your grandma schooling you in a global esports tournament. But can tech really turn our world into one big group chat where everyone gets along? The plot thickens.
Grandma dropping headshots in a global esports tourney? That's wild. But on a serious note, the internet as this big group chat, it's double-edged. On one hand, yes, it can level the playing field, give people a voice who've never had one before. It could create empathy where there was none by showing us lives and stories different from our own. But let's keep it real. There's also a darker side. Echo chambers, cyberbullying, political manipulation. We've seen it all play out. Thinking tech alone will make us hold hands across the globe is too optimistic. Connectivity doesn't automatically mean unity. There's groundwork we need to lay first with education and critical thinking skills to make sure that when grandma does plug in, she's not just part of the conversation, but also understands how to navigate through the noise.
Hold up. The internet is one massive group chat? That's one wild thought. Imagine everyone plugged in and having a say. But hey, just because you can talk to anyone anywhere doesn't mean it's all roses and sunshine. The net's dark side is real. Online mobs, fake news. And then there's Granny unwittingly clicking on shady links instead of schooling noobs in esports. Real harmony through tech? We need some digital street smarts. Without that, giving everyone access is like tossing keys to a Lamborghini to folks who've never driven before. It's not just about connecting people. We gotta teach them what to do once they're online. Or else, we're just building a highway with no traffic lights. Chaos City, here we come.
Absolutely, Simon. The internet's like a tool. For better or worse, depends on who wields it and how. As we push for global connectivity, let's remember that access alone won't knit the world together in unity. We must ensure the fabric of our digital society is strong enough to hold when pulled by opposing forces. And that means educating everyone, Granny included, on how to navigate this brave new world responsibly. Unity's possible if we're intentional about it. So listeners, the question remains, how do we harness technology in a way that genuinely fosters global unity? What steps should we take today for a more harmonious tomorrow? Keep tuning in as we hack away at these big ideas, one episode at a time.
And here's the kicker, Joe. Imagine North Korea and South Korea throwing down not in a demilitarized zone, but in Overwatch or League of Legends. Talk about a battle without real casualties, just bruised egos and crushed dreams of victory.
Right, instead of trading missiles, they're swapping mouse clicks. There's something beautifully ironic about North and South Korea duking it out in League of Legends. Picture this, the true arena, the only place where a Zerg rush can broker peace, or a last-second Overwatch play gets more cheers than any political summit ever could. Who'd have thought our path to world peace might be through spectators united by their love for esports? Next up, Diplomats facing off in a StarCraft tournament. My money's on whoever can micromanage their units and their policies.
Okay, Joe, picture this. World leaders settle their beefs in Call of Duty. But let's be real. Esports aren't all sunshine and handshakes. The competition gets fierce, man. We're kidding ourselves if we think a FIFA match is going to solve decades-old conflicts. But here's the twist. It's not the games themselves, it's the shared passion. When fans from rival nations scream for the same epic play, that's where walls crumble. It's like, dude, I might not speak your language, but that headshot was sick. We gotta keep pushing this angle. Could esports be the olive branch? Maybe, plus they're a blast to watch.
Hey man, you're onto something. Esports is like MMA for the digital age. It's raw competition, but without the bruises. And yeah, it won't erase deep-seated conflict overnight, but shared passions can spark a sort of camaraderie that goes beyond borders. Whether you're from LA or Beirut, a crazy play hits the same. That's human connection in real time. It's powerful when we share those ooh moments across cultures. It doesn't solve all the world's problems, but it's a heck of a common ground to start on. We've got fighters shaking hands after a bout. Why not gamers too, right?
Oh man, get this. Esports is exploding. Competition's fierce, but it also builds wild connections. Take, for example, the 2019 Fortnite World Cup. Players from all over the globe, different backgrounds, facing off in New York City. It became a global village right there at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And let's not forget how South Korea's government sponsors esports training programs, grooming their players like Olympic athletes. Or how Norway and Denmark are creating educational programs on competitive gaming. We've got governments recognizing gaming as a cultural and economic force. These digital battlefields are where the youth speaks a common language, gaming. When you're shooting aliens together or scoring virtual goals, nationality kind of takes a back seat. And that's what connects people, not just fun and games, but a shared experience, blending entertainment, skill, and strategy. That's the gold mine of potential unity we're sitting on here in the esports world.
But let's pump the brakes for a sec. Not everyone's ready to hold hands over a Fortnite dance just yet. We've got to consider the less shiny side of esports, the intense nationalism it can sometimes stir up, plus incidents of toxicity and cyberbullying among fans and players. These are real issues that can create division instead of unity. And while South Korea's esports training programs symbolize national pride, they also fuel fierce competition against other countries, which isn't always friendly. It's competitive nature amplified on a global scale, a reflection of our world's complex dynamics. Yes, there's potential for unity, but with soaring stakes and passions running high, there's also a recipe for rivalry and discord. So while gaming connects, we can't ignore the divides it might deepen under its surface.
Esports, the ultimate unity brew, or just another recipe for digital discord. The plot thickens like my grandma's gravy. Let's chew on that.
So Simon, let me take you back. I'm at this local Halo tournament years ago, right? Everyone's revved up, the energy's electric. There's this one dude, let's call him Mike, loud and a bit rough around the edges, and then there's Alex, quiet, kind of keeps to himself. They're up against each other, and the crowd's loving it. By all rights, these two guys should be oil and water, but during the match, they're both pulling off moves that have us on the edge of our seats. When it's over, something just clicks. They're caught up in the same excitement as the rest of us, and what do you know? They end up grabbing a bite together afterward, laughing like old buds. That day, nobody cared who came from where or what their background was. It was pure common adoration for the game. So yeah, esports can stir up dust, but man, they can also be the grounds where once unlikely friendships are born, where real respect is formed. If that's not a slice of unity, what is?
Absolutely, Joe. It's those moments that remind us esports can bridge worlds in ways we don't always expect. High stakes, sure, but high fives all around too. So is competitive gaming a battleground or a playground for peace? Guess we'll just have to play on and see where the score leads us.
Talking about the power of esports to unite, it's interesting how this virtual competition can spark real-world change. Moving from battlegrounds to diplomacy, it's not such a stretch when discussing international relations in gaming lobbies. Have you heard about these initiatives using avatars for diplomatic engagements, Simon? Online spaces are becoming experimental grounds for new ways of negotiating peace. Could virtual reality be where the next Camp David Accord happens? Imagine that.
Avatars hashing out world peace? Like if World of Warcraft had a UN? Sounds kinda nuts. The digital realm's neutral, sure, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Avatars lack the complexity of real human emotions. They're great for practice runs at diplomacy, but can pixels replace the pressure of a face-to-face sit-down? There's also anonymity online. How do you trust Charming Elf 123 to handle nuke talks? We can't downplay the impact of shared space and physical presence during negotiations. As much as I'd love avatars to pave our way to world harmony, there are layers, body language, eye contact, the whole shebang, that avatars just can't capture. Maybe one day, but we're not swapping embassies for gaming lobbies quite yet.
Sure, avatars have limits, but think about the virtual realm as an add-on, not a replacement. It could prep diplomats before crunch time negotiations, kind of like flight simulators for pilots. In a game, you can experiment with complex scenarios and develop strategies without real-world fallout. Consider platforms like Second Life that have hosted social and political gatherings. Or VR peace talks where participants embody avatars different from their own nationality or race, fostering empathy and broadening perspectives. Plus, anonymity online isn't all bad. It can encourage openness, making parties more willing to explore resolutions they might not face to face. There's potential here. We just need to understand how to channel it toward diplomatic ends. Digital détente might be closer than we think.
Yo, huge shout out to all our listeners for tuning in. Your eardrums are real MVPs. Remember, life's a game, and we're all just trying to score those sweet, sweet points of wisdom together. Make sure you're back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for more banter and maybe some accidental enlightenment. Stay awesome and keep it real. Till next time, peace out.